Hello, everyone. Happy OTA. It's Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We are going to give you 30 freaking decks for all the OTA cards. We've got a breakdown of every change, every card, everything that is new after this OTA. I think we may have a new meta on our hands. Ding dong, the blob is dead. Welcome to the end of the blob meta. However, the end of the blob meta may bring to light a problem that we're having with second dinner. We're going to talk about that in 1 minute. But first, hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. We bring you at least 3 new decks every single weekday. That is 5 days a week, and also pretty much every Sunday. So that's 18 new decks a week guaranteed from the channel. Decks you're not going to find anywhere else. We often break meta decks before anyone else. For example, that Zun's Black Knight deck we had days before anyone else was talking about it. You get the best decks here. Hit that sub, hit that like, hit that comment. In addition, if you comment this video, this morning's video, because there was a full video this morning that had custom cards, reviews, and 3 decks. If you comment on this video, that video, and yesterday's video, each of those is an entry to win a free season pass, either Scar or Black Swan. If you have Scar, you can choose Black Swan. If you'd rather just have Black Swan, you could choose Black Swan. Whatever you want, all you have to do is sub and comment. So please do that. I'd appreciate it. Cool. All right. Ready? This is every card released since. We've got Loki, Alioth, Ravonna, and Mobius. Loki was nerfed twice. Alioth was nerfed twice. Ravonna was buffed once and then rebuffed a second time. And Mobius was nerfed once and then sort of buffed, but like still a nerf from the original. That's 4 cards and like a million balance change. Then Elsa, we had nerfed twice. Man-Thing and Nico were left alone. Black Knight got a buff. Werewolf by Night got a pretty hefty nerf. Cool. That's October. Now we're on to November. Ms. Marvel got a nerf. Gladiator got a buff. Annihilus got a nerf. Martyr got a buff. Sebastian Shaw was left alone. Blob was nerfed. Sorry. Yeah, Blob was nerfed. Havoc has been left alone thus far, though he was changed immediately prior to release. And Celine got a buff. That's 13 of 17 cards they've released since September that have been nerfed. My immediate, or have been changed from when they were in Spotlight, changed from their immediate. We also already have Hercules, and everyone sort of expects at some point Kyra to join the list. So we already have Hercules as a card that was buffed. We'll talk about the buffs to Blob, Selene, and Hercules in this video. Chill, that's still coming, I promise. So it makes it extremely hard to spend resources when this percentage of cards is changed. I don't think it's a problem that most of these cards were changed. I'm going to do a full article on Marvel Snap Zone where I look at all 17 of these cards, probably Hercules to be perfectly honest, so maybe 17 or 18 cards individually, and say, were they nerfed? Were they buffed? Why? Was it important? Should this have happened? And like a lot of times the answer is yes, and maybe the solution is more playtesting. But either way, given how limited and scarce resources are in this game, this makes recommendations, this makes new cards really, really difficult. Over on the Patreon, I had a little screed earlier where I wasn't sure how to recommend Miek. Because if he's great, sorry, if he's not great, then does that mean I should be recommending that since they're definitely going to buff him if he's not? What if he gets Spider Man 2099 and is left terrible forever? Or Man Thing, who was kind of okay, and then other nerfs took him out of the meta, right? Havoc, who could have been a contender, but they nerfed Viper 2 days after his release. It's all extraordinarily complicated, right? So I think it needs longer to look at, but my immediate gut reaction is I'm not happy about it. Let me know what you think. Maybe you think like because looking at the cards that were changed, I think almost all of them were for the better. Like absolutely needed it. There's one or two that I think like, okay, that was unnecessary. You could have just left that alone. But almost all of the others, it's like, yeah, this is a much more playable game because of these nerfs or buffs or changes. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm formulating thoughts. Expect a long article on Marvel Snap Zone, hopefully by Friday, although time is a flat circle, so I'll do my best examining what's happening here because this is 100% worth paying attention. right? This is something the community should be looking at, should be talking about. Okay, we're on to our actual OTA now. Blob is now a 6-0 with totally new text. Blob now eats until he gets 15 power. Um, and he'll eat the next card that will put him above 15 power. So okay, ready. Let's say we have a 15 power card. He eats a 15 power card. He's done. Cool. He gets 15 power. He's done. He's eaten one card. Is there a 15 power card? Whatever. Um, I can't think of a single 15 power card. The card that would have been 15 Destroyer is now 16. So let's just say it's Destroyer. He eats Destroyer. He gets 15. He's done. Cool. Previous Destroyer. He eats Red Skull to 14. Good. And then he eats one more card that has any power that puts him to 15 or above, and he's done. If that card is infinite, he's now at 34. Get it? He gets the power of that next card above 15, assuming he doesn't hit exactly 15. Which weirdly makes him worse than Thanos, because in Thanos he's much more likely to just eat a one drop and be done, right? Like you eat you get to like 14 and then you're eating like ones and threes and ones and twos and so on, and then all of a sudden you're done with it and like you're not getting much above 15. So Thanos Blob takes a big hit. So does Ramp Blob. He's no longer going to get to crazy numbers. So Tribunal is no longer the crazy play that he was with it. So Blob is now a reasonable card. Is that and that is healthier for the game because Blob Thanos was like all the high win rate deck. Destroyer is buffed to a 6/16. That's awesome. That's where he started. He probably could even use one or two more than that at this point, since his downside is literally wreck the rest of your board. But that's very good. Destroyer is now a more powerful card and interesting card. And if Blob beats him, he's a 16 now and he's done. Cool. All good. Viper was a 3/4 and basically stopped seeing play and is now a 3/5. Look, 1 point is good. This makes Viper slightly better. Don't know how much I care, but slightly better. Celine gets a completely crazy +3 power. She's now a 1/2 that still has the same ability, and she's good now. Like, period. She's good now. She's going to work. She's going to be a powerful card. She's slightly worse sometimes in Galactus, but she's more likely to get you Prio, so she's really good there. I think Celine is just straight up kind of good now. Will she have a home in Annie Bounce? Still probably not. But in the pure junk stuff, I think we're getting to the real winner. Elektra's a 1/2. That's huge. She's playable now. Um, there's some worry that with Blob gone, we're going to a Black Knight meta, and Elektra's now playable. It's just a one drop that answers. They play Black Knight. Next turn, you take off or play up. One drop is extremely splashable. If they don't get Kyra out quickly, you've got Elektra. Call it a day. The next major change is Dazzler is a 2/2, which means if you can fill every location, Dazzler is a 2/4, 6/8. 2/8 is completely silly big stats. It's also worth noting that Elsa is good because Elsa so easily gets to 2/8 or 2/9, but whatever. Dazzler is going to be very good in homes that can fill everything. She goes, I think, in every Patriot deck from now to eternity that's running Onslaught. She's got numerous other homes. She goes in a bunch of ongoing decks because even as like a 2/6, right? 2/6 is great stats, as anyone who's been playing Maximus can tell you. Then we have Hercules buffed already a week out of less than a week out of Spotlight Caches to a 4/7. And I think there might be some meta Hercules stuff. It's actually going to be the lead deck tomorrow because I found it a little bit late, but I spoke to Den about it. It's going to be on the podcast that we release, and I think we need to talk about a Hercules deck. And further, Dagger loses 2 power, but instead of getting +2, she gets +3. And anyone who's played Marvel Snap knows that +3 scaling is completely silly. So I think Dagger and Hercules might be meta cards. Sorry, people, I told not to get Hercules a few days ago. I think Hercules still needs a better buff. I think Hercules is still like dangerously mid, but this Dagger buff is so strong it might not. Dagger is again now very likely to be a meta card, and I can tell because every card they've ever had at +3 has been a meta card except Havoc, and Havoc has a ridiculous downside, and Dagger has no down. So we're gonna look at literally a stupid amount of decks. We're gonna look at almost 30 decks, and we've also got Blob math. Cool. Let's go. Blob 6/0. On reveal, merge cards from your deck into this until it gains 15 or more power. Ongoing can't be moved, so it keeps the ongoing, so it still can't be used as Shuri Red Skull, which is pretty nice. All right, credit to Jeff Hoogland for this. Hoagland, I believe it's Hoagland. Excuse me. Credit to Jeff Hoagland for this. Uh, Hogue did some math and was kind enough to share it and give me permission to share it in the Thanos Lockjaw Living Tribunal deck, the one that was the #1 deck as of this morning that we featured in yesterday's video. Um, it is 51% likely, so half the time it'll be 20 or less power, and 80% of the time it'll be 25 or less. So I would generally assume you're going to get something between 15 and 25, which is a lot, and that's a large range for your opponent to have to deal with. 94% of the time it's going to be less than 30. So just like generally speaking, assuming going less than 30, I don't think that deck necessarily still exists, but that's a good baseline to look at how much less powerful this is. This was basically always above 30 before. The standard Thanos Lockjaw, this is the like Torikun style version. 75% of the time it's 20 or less. It's dead in that deck, right? Like that deck, like I mean it's not dead. Look, 20 or less is still pretty damn, right? 24% of the time it's going to be 15, and you're pretty happy if you get an 18 or 19 power card for 6. That also happens to like wreck. It doesn't kill Darkhawk, I guess, anymore, but that also happens to just be a very good card. Um, it's still the easiest big stats in the game, but it's more comparable to the rest of the game, right? And 75% of the time, you're going to be real sad when you get that high roll, but it's still really strong. Also, no infinite on this deck, so it doesn't have the super high rolls of getting above 30. The ramp Living Tribunal decks are again same basic math as the Thanos decks, right? The Thanos Living Tribunal deck, you have slightly better percentages because you don't have stones to eat of getting there, but not notably. Again, I think that might kill this deck, which relied really hugely on Tribunal Blob being stupidly huge for Tribunal. Note that like there's randomly a 10% there on that 22 power, which I think is pretty cool. But that is big. That's really impressive. And that's enough. Let's get to our first deck. This is the Sanatora deck. This is the Tribunal deck. Does this deck still exist? Is the question we have to ask ourselves. The other question we should probably ask ourselves is Ravonna now better than Psylocke? Because it can't afford to cut anything else, right? Like it has to run these big cards. It can't afford to like run another small card with Blob's new text. So is Ravonna for Iron Man and Blob only better than Psylocke? I tend to think no, but time will tell. I think this deck is dead. I think this was the best deck in Marvel Snap, and it is now just a good deck. I don't know how Tribunal works here anymore. It is far more dangerous and less likely to put up an impressive amount of power. Cool. I'm ready to be wrong. This is obviously untested. It's early. So I think this deck is great, but no longer busted. Also worth noting, Blob still says 6-4 here. It's now 6-0. It takes a little bit of time for the deck builders to update with the new information. You'll be fine. All right, then we have the Torikun Thanos. I think this one's fine. I think that this is no longer clearly the best deck, but I'd be shocked if it's not in the top 5. I think that this outputs a massive amount of power still. You're no longer soloing lanes with Blob, but there's enough other power everywhere else for this to still be stupid strong. So I think this is more where you want to be with your Thanos list. I could see cutting Jeff for another big old card at this point though. Like Devil Dino is not as great as it was, right? So you just want to add a couple of the extra power cards from this deck, the high power cards from this deck, to the Torque and Thanos, and I think that this is still one of the better decks in Marvel Snap. Last one, this is kind of more like it, kind of more like what I was thinking. This is the Death version. This is safeties. It has one of the highest win rates, even though no one really talks about it. Although it doesn't exist as high up on ladder as the #1 and #3 deck, which were the previous two. Um, this has a little bit of disruption from Killmonger and Doctor Octopus, so I think it might be a little better in the current meta. But again, I think these are real decks. I think these do enough powerful things. These do enough powerful things that they're still going to be dangerous parts of the meta. I think Scar keeps them powerful enough that even with the less powerful Blob, these are still going to be meta decks. I don't think they're the best deck anymore. I think they're very good though. Next up, we have Ika Scar. This is Scar's Big Dumb Scardiet deck. Ika's a freaking phenomenal deck builder. Does this deck still exist with Blob? Oh yeah, very much so. You have a potential of getting a small blob, right? Like you can like literally just like if Shadow King 0 and Nebula are your last three cards, you have a 6, 9, 10 power blob. But a 6/10's not a terrible play, right? And at that point, you've drawn Magneto. So just play Magneto, right? If you don't have any big cards in deck, when you only have three cards in deck, you should be able to tell. And if like you have sometimes you'll have Scar and Magneto left in your deck, right? Great, play them. If you have Scar, Magneto, and Shadow King left in your deck, you are guaranteed a stupid huge, and you will know that. So I think that makes this deck really, really strong and really, really good. I think this is sort of where you want to be with Blob right now. It's going to be far, far, far more consistent. I think this is dead. This deck needed, in order to fully exist, Blob to be huge so you could play Tribunal. It can still do the big Blob and Taskmaster. It can still do the big Blob and Zola. But the big Blob and Tribunal was so strong and so consistent that not having it is dangerous. Now, could this still exist? Yes, and the reason is Ravona. Ravona means you can go Blob, Taskmaster, Zola. Oh no, you can't. I'm completely wrong. You can go Blob Taskmaster or Blob Zola without any extra tricks. It gives you a third ramp along with Electro and Wave, which means in something like 90% of games you should be like hitting a ramp card, which means that there's some consistency. So this is slightly better, but not much better. The extra zeros do matter though. You might at this point just want Shuri in this, so you can go Shuri Taskmaster as a backup plan. Because Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster is now back to being basically the biggest thing you can constantly do. Next up, we have a Blob Scar. This is just another nice simple deck. This is the Shuri version that I was referring to. This has a lot of plays and should be relatively hard to beat. Ravona can make Shuri cost 3. It doesn't usually matter, but it's entirely possible it does in some games. Um, it will also make Taskmaster 4. It'll make Blob 5. That's what it's here for, right? Is it going to be amazing every time? Nope. You also have Zabu, who costs Shuri, which is silly sauce, right? Um, you've got the I can pass on 5 and then go Shuri and Taskmaster to end the game. You can play out your big stuff early. If you get your stuff cheap enough, you can play out a lot of big stuff early and then get yourself a super cheap Scar, and you can win that way too. There's a lot of ways to win with this. This is very, very powerful. This is another one where I think I'm going to look to be playing this deck. We're up to Destroyer. Destroyer is now a 6/16, and 6/16 is now like consistently around the same power as Blob. It's probably less than Blob, but not like terribly less. So how about we try Spectrum Destroyer again? We try and steal a lane with Professor X, and on top of that, we can win another lane with Destroyer, which is still a pretty damn big thing. Or Spectrum can bump us to go wide. This is a 1 Series 3 card deck. If you have Destroyer, you can play this. Worth trying. Its win rate remains high. I think you can get infinite with this deck. So let's go back to this. Let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. I think this is pretty cool. We also have Binks' Attuma Destroyer. This is a little more complicated in that it wants to go Attuma into Professor X or Attuma on armor. It does things like throw a green goblin at the opponent to try and get that extra thing. You can drop Shuri Nimrod and then drop Destroyer and have like if you have an unreachable lane, there'll be 12 there. And then Destroyer plus Nimrod is a 20. Now that Destroyer is 16, 28 power lane, which is pretty freaking nice, right? Um, Daredevil lets you know what plan to make. Invisible Woman lets you do silliness, like go Invisible Woman, Shuri in a different lane, then Taskmaster behind Invisible Woman, then play Destroyer on Shuri. You get a 32 power Destroyer. Taskmaster will then reveal, copying 32 power Destroyer to win the game. I think this is a really, really good deck. That combo, by the way, is from the Jolly Roger, our friend and the king of Marvel Snap TikTok. Cool. I think this is a really cool deck that is, again, going to be better now, right? 32 is more than 30. Also, now that's a reasonable amount of power to be putting on the board again. We've got our friend Gunny T's Big Dumb Idiots. This is fairly similar to that Ika deck. Gunny just hit top 500 in the world with this deck. It got better, right? Blob is worse, but like not significantly worse because you're still eating a lot of power. Same exact concept as when we talked about the Ika deck. Plus, Destroyer's a touch better. Plus, this doesn't have to deal with Thanos bullshit. I think this deck just straight up got better than it was. Gladiator also should be a little bit better because there should be less giant bullshit in the meta. At least a little bit less giant bullshit, which makes Gladiator a better card. Cool. Next up, Celine is a 1/2. So the first place is just a straight up junk deck. This is our junk bounce. We got to see if Celine works here. Basically, this is a werewolf deck, right? Celine is intending to hit Hood or Green Goblin here. If you don't have Hood or Green Goblin, you don't play Celine. But if you do have Hood or Green Goblin, you can like Celine on one, right? Get a 1/2 out, Falcon it, then Celine again along with like Hood or another card, and then you can play a Goblin and something else on four. That's pretty freaking powerful. Nico's also nice because Nico can just turn whatever's negative into a give whatever you gave the negative to, make it a demon, and then it loses that, and so on. This is at its core a Zabu deck as much as anything else, but Celine is better in it, so the deck is probably better, right? The question that remains to be seen is if Celine is actually worth playing over like an Iceman deck or a Spider Ham. We don't know that yet, but it's possible, right? Like if you're not running Celine, you don't run King Goblin. But if this works, hey, this is a Den deck. But next up, we have a Galactus Junk deck. This is another Den deck. Again, same basic concept here. If you can make your green or Hobgoblin or Hood huge and send it to them, that's usually enough to win a Galactus. A Galactus, great, you win the game. Cool. Ravona makes all the Goblin and Hobgoblin cheaper, and that's pretty damn good, right? I don't know. This is a very powerful deck. I tend to like Ms. Marvel is very good in this version because not when you're not playing Galactus, but I tend to prefer Jeff in that spot as a general role now. You can also still obviously wave Galactus Goliath just fine, and none of that has changed. Cool. And then this deck keeps winning. So I checked its win rate and it's been played again this season. It's got a 60% instead of 62% win rate now, but like, hey, what the hell ever. This keeps winning. And Celine was bad in it before, so Celine went from bad in it to good in it. You hit Hood or you hit Green Goblin and you're perfectly happy. You bounce it back if you can't throw it over with a Nihilus, right? I mean, or Green Goblin ends up on their side, and then once in a while you just Loki that crap away, and you're totally fine. I think this is likely the best Celine deck. I think Loki gets a huge, huge, huge buff with this current change, because now it's no longer like so dead into Thanos Blob, and that means Loki's probably the best deck again. Hey, hooray! Did you miss it for the like 2 days it wasn't? Right. Viper is a 3/5, which is again just a power buff, just a general buff. You know, hopefully you know the Viper wasn't in those Celine decks because now like these are decks with Viper and Celine. So Viper here is basically just for Hood now that Celine is good, right? I still really like this deck though, so like Viper is here. Sorry. You can, however, if you Celine, um, your Storm, for example, right? Like you can Viper over that Storm, give them a -1 and play 5, so that makes Viper 6, which is pretty good, right? It also is like it's just decent stats. I don't know. Vipers have got a really hard time finding a home in this meta, I think. Here's a junk list. This is slightly better as far as using Viper because you can go debris into Hazmat Viper on 5, right? Hazmat makes the rocks negative, then you can throw that over. Hazmat makes the rocks negative, then you can Annihilus. That works just fine. And again, you as always have I can chuck Hood over and so on. Viper is just your like emergency Annihilus in this deck instead of B. Fine card. You can send the Sentry Void over. Cool. I think this is cool and worth trying. Next up, we got another junk deck. This is like the pre-Annihilus junk. It runs Annihilus now because it like kind of has to. But this is basically pre-Annihilus junk. You don't need to send the stupid debris rocks over as if you're sending other stuff over, right? You send the other stuff over, you clog them with Doc Ock, so on, and then you eventually win. Viper is again a perfectly fine backup plan because Annihilus is not important for this deck. He is an extra condition, basically to counter other Annihiluses. So this deck should be good. It's an old school deck that's just running Annihilus without relying on him, and so it has Viper, like those decks always used to have Viper, and now she's well statted too. Last one, this is the Junk Galactus. Same concept, except you Galactus, right? Viper is not great at setting up Galactus, but hey, with the rest of your stuff you're doing, it's still pretty freaking good. Cool. I like this deck. I don't know if this is how I'd build it, but I like this deck. Then Viper is slightly better at it, and Celine's slightly better at it. So that's two upsides, right? All right, Electra as a 1/2. Electra's the first place I really want to try her is Wobolos W. Our friend W has this amazing deck back when bounce was everywhere. And it was basically saying, okay, okay. So what if I just throw Electra into bounce? And now Electra's a 1/2, right? I can kill Black Knight. I can ruin my opponent's day. I can ruin a lot of my opponent's plays early on curve. So that's his deck, right? That's what it does. And then it's got Valkyrie instead of Iron Man as its way to like take out big things at the end of the game. Could work fine. Valkyrie and Electra have hidden synergy where if they have one less card in a Valkyrie lane, you usually win that lane, right? And Electra takes out one of their one drops that have been filling that lane, allows you to win. So I think this deck is really cool and really strong, and this is one I'm going to be trying because I'm obsessed with bounce. If you're new here, I totally love bounce. Kazoo is also a natural home for Electra now. It's just a card that takes a card off their board, so you happily run her. Um, this is a standard Nico Kazoo deck, right? You can, if you can't get use out of her, Nico can destroy her, turn her into a demon, whatever, and everything else is just reasonably good power. Um, the rest is fairly obvious, right? Like you're not multi-triggering Elsa too many ways, but Nightcrawler is good enough for at least one, and you can go there. If you don't have Elsa, feel free to. I'm not even sure it's better than like Kitty here, but it's a good deck. A different version of Bounce. This is a much more standard version. Um, Running Maria Hill to give you an extra 2 drop. It's got Collector because you're playing Bishop and Beast and Falcon, so you can retrigger it multiple times. That also obviously works for retriggering Elsa, which is a lot of power, and retriggering Angela, which is a lot of power. Everything else here is self-explanatory. Does Electra have to go here? Nope. But she's nice, right? You get a little bit of removal in your bounce with Shang and Electra. Next up is Dazzler. Dazzler is now a 2/2, which is meta. Dazzler is going to be a meta card at some point, even if not right now. Um, the easy, obvious place is Zoo, where she's probably better than that Elsa that was in that other version. So this is just going to be really good. This is our friend Buddy Zoo. Buddy also has Electra in this, which is pretty damn cool. Like he can see the future and knew this crap was coming. He could not, by the way. But this is a very cool deck, and it runs a lot of powerful cards. It tosses priority for Valkyrie. It says I can drop my cards if I think you have Killmonger after if I don't get my Kara. Then just rolls because of Ghost. Electra kills their stuff. Dazzler, you should be able to fill every lane with this, which means Dazzler is going to be a 2/8 or a 2/9 if you have Blue Marvel, which is just like silly stats, and enjoy yourself with the win for that. Ooh, you can make it a 2/10 if you also Valkyrie that lane. Okay. Uh this is another version of Zoo. This is a much more standard version. Um it's the same basic concept, right? Like this is a little easier to play than the previous version. Echo is, I think, important. You want Echo or Martyr in these. Martyr for size, Echo to say I can compete in this lane. I guess Echo should probably be in the Valkyrie one, right? Because Echo and Valkyrie work so well together. But this is still a really strong deck. Coming up with the right Zoo, I think Zoo might actually be able to compete a little bit right now. Give me a couple days, we'll have a really powerful Zoo for you. This is the deck I hit Infinite with. I threw Dazzler in it over Shadow King because having a 2/9 in this deck, because I fill every damn location almost every game, is going to be crazy strong. And again, sorry, 2/8, and you can make it a 2/9 with Bast, and you're perfectly happy. You can build it up further with Forge. You can, this is going to be real good in this deck, right? Like this plus Iron Man is lane winning. It's going to be Bishop sized. So maybe you keep Shadow King and cut Bishop, but either which way, this card is going to be absolutely stellar in this deck. This is the kind of home I'm looking at, and I think this is going to be a really powerful thing to do. Having a 2/8 to go with my like 2/9 Mysterio and so on. It's just a lot of power for really cheap. The other obvious home is the Sarah Hitmonkey list, because if Dazzler costs 2, you play her on the last turn for 1, and that seems really strong. This is a standard ass version of this. It's got Kitty and Angela, which aren't always in, or I'm not sure still should be, but it's also got Goose to help prevent your opponent's bullshit. And then if you can go Mysterio, Maximus, Dazzler, Hitmonkey at the end of the game, right? You're just playing a bajillion power cards to end the game, pumping Bishop up, pumping Angela up, and crushing face. Patriot is the last obvious place for Dazzler because Ultron is in Patriot, and Ultron basically autofills all the locations. Having an extra 2/8 seems pretty good. 2/9 again with Blue Marvel seems pretty good in this list. It's as big as Abomination without Patriot if you can fill every location. It's pretty good. Yeah. Um, I think that this deck is actually good. keep it a secret for now, but I think this deck is actually going to be really. All right, now we're into Hercules. I love Hercules. First, we have Bacon Train Zabu Phoenix Force. This remains the highest win rate Phoenix Force in the game. It basically says, okay, so I can go Phoenix Force, I can go Shuri Nimrod, or I can end the game with silly shit like Shuri into Hercules, and then my giant Phoenix Force goes flying one place, and I just dropped a surprise 12 power Hercules on a lane to win, and it's just really cool. I love this list. I think it's stellar. Having Hercules with an extra power. Now it would be a 3-14 on the last turn of the game. 15 with Shuri is going to win lanes, right? It's going to be super powerful. Try it. Then we have Conquest Keen Quake. This is our friend Keen Koala's Quake list. It ran Hercules as a way to sort of protect that storm lane. It's got more power. It's better at protecting that storm lane. Enjoy. Nothing fancy or complicated here. This is our move list that everyone's been playing. But retains a like surprisingly high run rate even in the Thanos meta because it's so easy to clog your opponent with it. We had a version yesterday that's really, really great at clogging opponents that I think is slightly better than this, but didn't run Hercules. Um, Hercules is just good here, right? Like throwing things into Craven and Kingpin is powerful. Like that's all this is really doing, but like that's plenty. It throws things into Craven and Kingpin. It makes it so your opponent can't control where they're playing. And if your opponent can't control where they're playing, you have a good shot at frustrating them and winning the game. All right, Dagger 2-0 when it moves to a location, +3 power for each enemy card there. This is the Chef's Kiss card. This is, again, my pick for the big, big, big winner of this OTA. So, first, we have Safeties Hercules Force 2. This is going to be one of the best decks in the game because it was already running Dagger as the third card to kill, and Dagger kind of sucked at that. Now, Dagger is going to be amazing as the third card to kill and might be better than multiple times, especially if you're going to go Tribunal and your opponent is flooding the board. So enjoy that crazy, crazy powerful dagger. You're going to win games with this deck. Next up, we have a Movement Hercules. This is our Hercules bounce list. Safety built this. It's really great, right? Dagger, and again, this just gets so much more powerful now with the stronger dagger. You've got 3 scalers in of winning you the game again. Torch, Dagger, and Vulture. And then like you've got Hercules for extra power, you've got Heimdall for extra power. You should be able to put stupid amounts of power everywhere. You can beast back plenty of your stuff for even more power. You can falcon back that torch, but don't be afraid to just falcon back your fist and ghost spider because like if you can spend if you spend turn 3 falconing, right? Then you can spend turn 4 vulture and iron fist or iron fist dagger and ghost spider. And it's like, oh cool, I got double use out of those after you already did it with human torch. It's real nice. All right, this is the move list that I've been competing with. I think it's super duper fun. Dagger is better in it, right? Like you got the Hulkbuster in it. This probably wants Forge, but whatever. Just got now it's got all 4 move cards to put power on. You only really want multiple mana if it curves into Hulkbuster, but hey, when it does, you tend to win. Everything else about this is really good, and Dagger and Hercules are so much stronger. Dagger's gonna be a meta card. I'm calling it. I'm telling you. And these aren't even the best list yet. The best list is for tomorrow. I need to test it. The best list is oh wait, never mind. I have the best list. This is the best list. This is the Hercules by night. I didn't think I was showing it. We're gonna look at this one again tomorrow in more detail with a but I think this is the best bounce list in the game right now. I think Torch is silly. I think Dagger is silly. And I think pumping around Werewolf and getting double moves for Hercules means this is going to put out absolutely stupid power. And I think putting out absolutely stupid power is probably worth doing. I am so for this list. Please, please, please play it, and you can thank me about it later. It was running Vulture, and Vulture was like awkwardly costed for the list, and now it's running Dagger, and Dagger is perfectly costed and gonna be a bajillion power. So like just multi-use your Iron Fist Ghost Spider and win, right? I think I want one more move in here. We'll figure that out. Tomorrow's version will be Chef's Kiss, perfect setup. Wait for it. All right, so that is like 30 decks. Hopefully you can find one to play. If you cannot, I'm so sorry. But as always, we'll have 3 more decks for you tomorrow because that's what we do here. Hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. You'll get a full show tomorrow morning, another snap take, then a podcast Saturday, and then another show Sunday. See you then. Peace.